Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saudara sekalian, saya cuba sediakan beberapa demo set yang mungkin anda yang dah biasa, orang suri rumah tangga tak ada masalah. Tapi saya mungkin kena belajar jugalah dengan anda malam ni. Apapun, yang penting kita kena tahu ada sebahagian daripada cookware anda pada malam ini yang harus anda tolak ke tepi ataupun simpan masuk dalam museum. Ataupun jangan bagi ke orang lah kalau kita tak boleh pakai, betul tak? Topik pada malam ni ialah cookware mana yang harus kita buang langsung dalam dapur kita ataupun dalam hidup kita. Sebab selama ni saya dan anda mungkin terlepas pandang, kalau kita dimaafkan pun nak buat macam mana, benda tu dah masuk dalam badan kita. Ready? Semua dah ada pen, ada pensel, dan tolong tekan share dan love. Sebab hari ni kita tak kira lah siapa, tak kira geng mana, negara mana pun kita hantar. Pasal apa? Kemungkinan dia orang pun ingat dia orang moden rupanya lagi bermasalah. Ready? Saya tunjuk demonstrasi pertama, iaitu siapa yang pernah pakai non-stick yang tak boleh melekat. Dan selalunya dia akan tulis kat situ perkataannya Teflon. Saya cerita dulu teori dia. Dan berapa lama you dah pakai? Setahun ke, 2 tahun ke, atau dah bertahun-tahun? Termasuk saya pun, okey? Kalau orang kata tak berilmu lagi bagus, kadang-kadang tak tahu lagi okey kan? Dah tahu macam problem pula. Baik, nombor 1, non-stick ni. Okey, saya tunjuk sampel dulu. Mana dia? Kita tunjuk satu. Kadang-kadang kita beli bukan yang pen nak buat serabai ke, nak buat roti canai ke apa-apa kan. Tapi kita beli periuk besar macam ni. So, dia buatlah ni jenis yang cantik, bukan main. Dia berwarna biru lah, merah semua. Tapi dalam tu, you nampak tak? Boleh nampak semua? Okey, saya duduk jauh sikit. Kalau you tengok, dia tulis kat situ Teflon. Sebab Teflon ni branded. Okey, dia siapa-siapa saja nak pakai coating Teflon tu, dia kena tulis perkataan Teflon. Sebab dia ada patent right dia. Tetapi dia tak cerita kat kita. Rupa-rupanya, selepas beberapa ketika, bila you boleh buat line kat sini, dan you punya ni pun dah nampak sikit. Kalau you fokus rapat kat dalam periuk saya ni, nampak line-line bercala. Bila dia dah mula bercala ataupun dah habis coating dia tu, dalam proses nak habis coating tu saja pun dah jadi masalah. Sebab apa? Ini sains ya. The most dangerous is called Teflon ataupun non-stick. Tak payah Teflon lah. Kadang-kadang ada brand lain yang dia tulis kat situ non-stick. Non-stick ni selalunya dia pakai plastik polimer. Tahu plastik tak? Plastik, dia ada special polymer dia, mixture dia. Lepas tu dia coat, lepas tu ada satu yang paling dangerous dalam Teflon ni, namanya PTFE, polytetrafluoroethylene. You dengar perkataan ethylene tu, kalau atas pada 200 degree centigrade je, dia mula keluarkan benda-benda FE ni. Dan yang ni boleh menyebabkan, kalau you selalu masak pakai Teflon punya bahan ni, dia boleh pening, boleh migraine, boleh chills, kadang-kadang jadi sejuk, kadang-kadang jadi macam demam, tak pasal-pasal. Patutlah pembantu rumah saya dulu-dulu ni dia dok komplain pening kepala semua. Masa tu kita pakai periuk ni lah agaknya. Betul tak? Saya pun tibai jugalah. Tapi yang penting tu bukan masa makanan tu you makan saja dah masuk bahan-bahan ni, tetapi masa you tengah masak tu lagi dahsyat. Okey? So dia orang putih panggil toxic fumes. Jadi keluaran wap dia tu, asap-asap dia semua tu adalah boleh sampai melumpuhkan otak kita dan paru-paru kita. Dia boleh merosakkan. Dan setengah orang dia boleh rasa sampai macam chest dia, dada dia rasa sempit, rasa sesak, dan dia selalu batuk. Jadi kalau you masak pakai bahan Teflon dan you selalu batuk-batuk dan rasa macam nak kena heart attack tu, memang dah teruk dah lama masuk kot dalam you punya hidu. Bahkan ada orang pernah saman brand ni yang buat non-stick ni, sebab dia punya binatang, tak tahulah kucing ke, anjing ke, atau burung dia fatal, mati. Dia sue, dia dapat tahu. Okey, satu. Nombor 2, selain daripada PTFE, dia juga ada PFOA, nama perfluoroaltanoic acid. Yang penting yang ni yang menyebabkan kanser. Dia boleh menyebabkan ovary, orang perempuan, lagi satu orang perempuan, breast, dan orang lelaki yang famous tu prostate. Jadi kita dah ingatkan apa benda kita makan tu, rupanya tempat yang kita masak tu. Okey, so tuan-tuan sekalian, you janji dengan I dan I janji dengan you, no more non-stick. Okey? Tak apalah melekat kat tangan sikit-sikit tu pun kita cuci lah elok. Okey? Settle. So once you faham ni, you dah selesai satu isu yang paling besar. Number 1. Jadi, number two. Siapa yang pernah pula pakai aluminium? Mari kita tunjuk aluminium.
News.com. Chemical giant DuPont is still trying to merge with Monsanto, a move that would create one of the largest corporate criminal empires in the world. But behind the merger headlines are larger issues facing DuPont, specifically their behavior where it comes to poisoning communities. Yesterday, I discussed this issue with attorney Tim O'Brien, so let's take a look at that interview. So, Tim, on this issue of C8 and Teflon with DuPont, which has been all over the news for the last several months, Mike Papantonio, who usually sits in this chair, helped handle one of the largest cases, one of the first cases against it back in October. So, give us a little bit of just history of the issue of C8. It is Teflon, but what happened with C8 specifically that sparked these lawsuits?
Well, C8 has been used at a plant, a small plant, actually a huge plant, with a small chemical known as C8 in Parkersburg, West Virginia. The problem is DuPont began using what was a known toxin, C8, to help with the manufacturing of Teflon. The bigger problem began when DuPont saw that when it was testing this chemical, C8, on rats and dogs and monkeys, that these dogs and monkeys and rats were dying and getting all kinds of cancers, and DuPont, instead of stopping the pollution of C8 into the Ohio River, increased the pollution of C8 into the Ohio River and continued to increase the pollution of C8 into the Ohio River all the way up until the year 2000. So the pollution began no later than 1951 directly into the Ohio River and continued well past the year 2000, and people were drinking water that was being recharged through their aquifer, through their home faucets, which was contaminated with C8. And those birds are coming home to roost now, and that's why you're hearing so much about it now, because people are popping up with cancer and all of these other different illnesses.
So, for 49 years, DuPont is dumping this chemical that they knew to be toxic to humans and to other animals in the environment. They're pumping it into the Ohio River for 49 years. And now, one of the issues that we're learning about is that once they stop dumping, that wasn't necessarily the end of the toxicity. We have this issue of biopersistence. Explain what biopersistence is and how that relates to this C8 case.
Right, and just so I'm clear, the biopersistence issue is huge. The pollution issue is huge. The pollution started slowing down in 2000, but they actually continued polluting until about 2014, but it peaked in the year 2000. To your question, the reason why the biopersistence issue is huge is so DuPont stopped polluting the river in 2013 and 2014. Yay, right? Well, wrong. The problem is because this chemical is so biopersistent, meaning that it sticks to your blood, it stays in your blood. It is not urinated out. It is not defecated out. It stays there like a burglar in your home that you never invited in. It stays there for up to 25 years. And all of that time, for about 70,000 people in the surrounding communities, all of that time, that chemical is a burglar in your home that could cause cancer, could cause ulcerative colitis, could cause thyroid problems, and that's going to continue on for decades, even though DuPont stopped putting this into the Ohio River a couple of years ago.
So here we are, 2016. So if somebody drank this water with this chemical in it, in 1991, it's still in their body today.
Oh, absolutely. And the point with this chemical is it is so toxic. Oh, absolutely. And the point with this chemical is it is so toxic that you measure its presence in the parts per billion and now even in the parts per trillion. It is like a bullet, which is tiny, in a huge theater. So think of it that way. A very toxic, very dangerous little chemical in a huge space. And that's why scientists have to measure it in parts per billion and parts per trillion, because it is so dangerous. And now, folks who have drunk the water along these Ohio River water supply districts, their situation with C8 in their bloodstream is set. They are going to have it for decades to come.
And did DuPont know? I mean, we know that they knew C8 was toxic. Did they know about the biopersistence issue?
Yes, and no later than 1979, 3M, which was the actual manufacturer of C8, which then was sold to DuPont, C8 was, excuse me, 3M told DuPont in 1979, no later than 1979, hey, this chemical is biopersistent, which is a buzzword. It's like toxin or carcinogen. It's synonymous with danger. And shortly thereafter, 3M then told DuPont, hey, so we got this biopersistent compound that we're selling to you. Make sure that you don't, that you dispose of it properly, either by incinerating it or sending it to a sealed hazardous waste facility, but by all means, do not discharge it to the surface water. Well, what did DuPont do? They didn't listen to the first two recommendations. They did not incinerate it. They did not treat of it properly in a hazardous waste facility. Instead, they did the exact opposite of what 3M in the instructions to DuPont told them not to do. Don't discharge to surface water. DuPont did exactly that. Over the 1990s, hundreds of thousands of gallons or of pounds of this toxin were dumped into the Ohio River and ultimately made their way into folks' homes all along the West Virginia and Ohio side of the Ohio River.
And so that was actually going to be my next question is they're dumping this in the Ohio River from Parkersburg, West Virginia. How far did it spread? I mean, where is the danger area? I mean, if they were still dumping this up to 2014, I mean, we're looking at, I guess, probably another 25 years of people still being able to ingest this, are we not?
Oh, yes. And so it's actually in the core area is 6 key water districts that are within about a 15 to 20 mile radius of the Parkersburg plant. But the water from the Ohio River continues downstream from Parkersburg, and it's actually been detected in water supply districts, for instance, in Cincinnati, Ohio. But what has to have been done, and what DuPont ultimately had to do after litigation began, and after the EPA got wind of some documents revealing the extent of the pollution, revealing the extent of the biopersistence, and revealing the extent of the toxicity problem, DuPont had to go out and actually buy carbon filtration systems for these water supply districts. And the sad thing is, Farron, this carbon filtration system has been available for 50 years. So this C8, even if DuPont were to use it, injudiciously use it, it never had to make its way into the water supply districts, but it did, and now these problems are being seen as you might expect they would be.
And, you know, for DuPont, as we've seen with so many other corporations who engage in this kind of behavior, it would have cost a little bit of money up front, like you said, to put in these filters to prevent these problems from happening or to properly dispose of the C8. Instead, they take the easy route to save a few dollars here and there. So hopefully, I mean, the goal here is make sure, you know what, DuPont, you screwed up. You could have paid the money back then, but instead today you're going to pay a lot more money because you're going to kill people. People are going to die. People I'm sure probably already have died as a result of the cancers and other problems that arise from C8. And so, you know, DuPont needs to pay up. It'd be even better if we could put some executives in prison for this kind of behavior because to me, I mean, this is no different necessarily than premeditated murder, I guess, because they knew what it could do. They knew what it would do. They knew it was going to get into people, and they just said to hell with it.
Yeah, it's the sad thing is, and really the happy thing is, however, we're left with the greatest democracy tool there is, and that's a civil jury trial system. You raise an interesting point about a little bit of money could have gone a long way. So Teflon is $1 billion and remains $1 billion portfolio of DuPont and now Chemours, the successor. The operating cost to run the Washington Works plant, which made a whole bunch of different materials, not just Teflon. The operating cost per year were almost $1 billion to incinerate C8 out of existence, to just wipe it out, just put it through a burner, and you don't have anything to discharge that has C8 in it into the Ohio River. That would have cost a little less than $2 million a year to actually operate the system and build the system. DuPont chose not to do that. DuPont made a deliberate decision not to do that and instead used the Ohio River as its toilet. And the problem is that toilet is not being evacuated to a septic system, which then properly takes care of whatever's being flushed. Instead, it's making its way into the aquifers, which then make its way into the water supply districts, which then made its way into the glass of water that the mamas and the daddies and the children were all drinking for decades. And now it's as if they're still drinking it because of this biopersistence issue. It's going to be there for decades to come.
Well, and that's why, people like you, people like Mike Papantonio are out there every day fighting, and we appreciate everything you do, Tim, and thank you for telling us this story today. It's a disgusting story, something we hear far too often when we talk about these massive corporations, but thank you for all your work.
It was my pleasure to have been here. Thank you.